philosophy.
What is and what is not true.
Those who know themselves.
Being better every single day.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Think Grow podcast. I am your host, Ruben Chavez. I hope you are all doing well and staying safe and healthy. I wanted to keep this episode fairly short and read you a blog post that I wrote a couple weeks ago. This blog post was based on a realization that I had that came out of a time when I was feeling very negative. I was feeling, first of all, physically exhausted. I was feeling emotionally burnt out. I was feeling creatively stagnant and just generally depressed. And I think that there wasn't one particular thing that led to this state, but I think that it was maybe a combination of things. The challenges of parenthood. I have a 14-month-old, and it's no easy task to raise a child, turns out, especially in a situation where we're self-isolating and we really can't leave the house. And so there's challenges that come along with that. Obviously, it's extremely fulfilling, and it's a responsibility that I love and have learned a lot from, but it's also extremely hard. So there's that. There's the global pandemic, obviously, and just the mood of the world, I would say. And that, I think that maybe weighed on me. I was reading a little too much news potentially. And then the third factor I would say that contributed to my state was the fact that I'm trying to write a book that unifies the most important lessons that I've learned throughout my life into a cohesive framework. And, that's no small task. And it's been very challenging and very frustrating at times. Again, something that I've been learning a lot from, and it's helped me clarify some of my thoughts and learn about myself, but also has caused me to pull out my hair. So anyway, these three things kind of coalesced at just the wrong time, I guess, and kind of threw me into a negative state. But out of that state, I was there for a few days, and then I was contemplating some things, and I realized something, and I had a realization that put things into perspective for me. It's going to sound obvious, and maybe this entire episode might be obvious to you, but I want to flesh it out a little bit because it helped me, and I think it can help you. So the realization that I had was that this part of the story is supposed to be hard. This is how the story goes. So I'm going to read you the blog post that I wrote to kind of contextualize this idea for you so that it makes a little bit more sense. I want to take a brief moment to talk about one of our sponsors for this show, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with over 25,000 classes in pretty much any field you can think of. Writing, photography, cooking, even social media marketing, just to name a few. One of the many reasons that I love and promote Skillshare is because their core values of learning and growing are very much in alignment with my own, and I'm sure if you're listening to this, with yours too. I'll tell you about one of my favorite classes that I've ever taken with Skillshare. It was a productivity masterclass, and it was all about creating systems in your life and business. And it was taught by this pretty well-known YouTuber, and it completely changed how Vanessa and I run our business. It helped give us our time back by helping us to create systems that streamlined and organized our content creation and our editorial calendar for Think Grow Prosper. Massively, massively helpful. And here's the cool news. Right now, Skillshare is offering listeners of the Think Grow podcast 2 months free, so you can try it out for yourself. Go to Skillshare.com/thinkgrow. You'll get unlimited access to 25,000 classes for a full 2 months at no cost. So it's basically a risk-free situation here. The specific URL that you want to visit for this offer is Skillshare.com/thinkgrow. Check it out. Join the millions of other students who are learning and growing with Skillshare. I've used it for a while. I love it. I think you will too. Again, that URL is Skillshare.com/thinkgrow. And now, back to the show. Here goes. In most situations, I'm pretty good at seeing the big picture. In the realm of politics, for example, I've come to understand that one side doesn't have all the answers and that a diversity of political belief is what keeps our society running relatively smoothly. This perspective has helped prevent me from getting stuck in the matrix of political ideology and dogmatism. But every now and then I hit a rough patch, a creative stumbling block, a setback, a bout of negative emotion, and I succumb to the delusion that what is happening now has always been and will always be. But I forget a crucial fact. I'm just passing through one stage in a predictable cycle. It's like the stock market. On a micro scale, it might seem to appear volatile or low. But if you zoom out and look at it on a macro scale, the overall trend is upward, despite all the dips. Another, more relevant way to think about this idea, I think, is in terms of the hero's journey, a concept first articulated through the research of depth psychologist Carl Jung and later elaborated on by Joseph Campbell and others. The hero's journey is not some arbitrary framework. On the contrary, it maps out a set of evolved patterns of behavior that represent how to act in the face of the unknown, how to go from where you are to somewhere better. A journey that humans have been undertaking in various forms since time immemorial. These patterns of behavior evolved over the course of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. We began by observing each other and imitating adaptive behaviors that were exhibited by the most successful individuals. Over time, we incorporated these behaviors into play and ritual, formalized them into drama and story, crystallized them into myth, codified them into religion, and finally articulated them in philosophy. This is why the hero's journey is the oldest story in the world. It's why it appears in virtually all human cultures. It's why it's hardwired into our psyche and our biology. In every hero's journey, there's a stage called the road of trials, followed by the ordeal or the belly of the whale. These are stages in which the hero must face great difficulties and obstacles, even chaos itself. They are necessary steps on the path to achieving the ultimate reward. Of course, this reflects how life actually works. We can't achieve anything of significant value without experiencing some challenges along the way. In mythological terms, we can't get the gold without confronting the dragon. The greater the reward we seek, the greater the obstacles and the challenges we encounter on the way to achieving it. In my case, the ultimate reward, or Holy Grail if you prefer, that I'm seeking is to write and publish a book that unifies the most important things I've learned into a cohesive framework that will positively impact my life and the lives of others. With a goal like this, of course I will need to face some dragons along the way. Of course I will need to overcome resistance and self-doubt. Of course it won't be easy. That's just part of the journey. It's how the story goes. So why is this information useful? Why is it useful to know what part of the story we're in? Why is it useful to know that there actually is a story at all that we inhabit? The reason it's useful is so that we can prepare accordingly. I've learned that when it comes to dealing with obstacles, half the battle is properly calibrating my expectations. Imagine if you were blindfolded and put on a roller coaster without knowing what was happening. The unexpected twists and turns and drops would be a jolting and unpleasant experience for most. If, however, you rode the roller coaster without a blindfold like a normal human, you would at least know what to expect and you'd know what kind of ride you were getting on, and you'd probably have an exhilarating and enjoyable experience to boot. So what's the moral of the story here? Reminding ourselves that difficulties, discomfort, and problems in general are normal, predictable, and universal human experiences somehow makes them easier to bear. We can approach them with more confidence and acceptance. We can approach them with a spirit of confidence and acceptance. Ah, yes, this is the part of the story that's supposed to be hard. Let's do this. Seen through the lens of the hero's journey, adversity isn't something to avoid or bemoan, but something to confront and accept. It's an inevitable part of a great and meaningful adventure. At least, that's how I've come to see it. Hey, thanks for listening. You can find the show notes for this episode and all other episodes on my website at thinkgrowprosper.com/podcast. That's where I put all the links and resources mentioned in each episode. It's also where I put the outlines of topics covered, which is a really good way to refer back to episodes in the future. Lastly, if you enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear about it. Feel free to leave a review on iTunes with your biggest takeaway. I make it a point to read all the reviews. You can also screenshot this episode and share it to your social media along with something you learned or found interesting. And tag me in your post because I'd love to see what you found interesting. Say hi and thank you for your support.